Hello, hello. My name is April Malone, and I'm with Yes, I Work From Home, and this is the podcast. Today, I have Jen Hughes, my dear friend, with me today. She's a certified public accountant, but we have lots of other things to talk about as well. We're going to talk about both of our journeys, raising kids and working from home. And let's go. Jen, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today.
Of course.
I wanted to kind of break up these episodes. I've been interviewing some people that I know and some people that I don't know. And I noticed that I have interviewed quite a few male entrepreneurs, and I needed to bring in and people I didn't know personally, a few in a row. And so it's really nice to have a familiar face back in here with me again. And we have a lot of history. So
we do. I think we've known each other 4 years now, since our oldest, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. Our oldest kids are in fourth grade together.
Yes. So Jen brought her kids to a birthday party that I hosted for our daughter when she was turning 7. And
That's
I'll
right.
tell my part of the story. And I had just decided to interview with VIP Kid that week. And I was working really, 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 really hard on preparing myself for this kind of intense interview. It's really kind of high stakes, as far as that job is concerned. Trying something that I had never done before. English as a second language online is just requires a lot of different techniques than you would use like in a classroom. So I had spent basically all of my time that week preparing for this interview and not for my daughter's birthday.
And you had a lot planned for your daughter's birthday, as I remember.
Yeah, so we thought, it'd be
crafts.
easy. We'll just have it at the park, just a few houses away from our house. It's just like 7 houses away. Well, I had never hosted a park birthday party before, and I didn't realize how big of a distance that is when you have to run back home to grab something that you forgot, like the lighter for the birthday candle or something like that. And I think my husband had overslept, and he ended up going to Costco while the birthday party had already started to go get the rest of the groceries and to pick up the cake. And yeah, I guess I did have crafts and I mean, it was a simple game. It was like pin the tail on all of the animals from like a calendar. And yeah, it was fun. But Jen texted me later that day and she's like, "Hey, I had some pictures from the party," and I had literally no idea who she was.
Yes, and in fact, she's like, "Oh, I have some pictures too of your kid," and she sent me pictures of someone else's kid. And I said, "These are fantastic. You should send them to his mom. I think her name is."
Yeah. So I felt like we had just moved. We had already lived in Arizona, but we had just changed cities. So we went from Chandler to Gilbert, and we had changed schools right at the same time. And so basically we were building a completely new community with our neighbors and the school, and just I'm not from here, so I don't have a big collection of friends and family to do things. So when we had a birthday party, we literally invited people that we didn't know, like every single person, like basically we didn't know anybody. And so I just felt like this hot mess, spazzy mom who was just running around like a chicken with her head cut off. And all the moms were so gracious, and they were like helping open the packages of food and sending things out and being reassuring. But I was like 99% embarrassed.
Aww.
And so I think it was like a week or so later that you were like, "Yeah, I'm Jen. I'm the one who sent you the picture." And I think we started to become parking lot friends at that point.
That's right. I was talking to a different friend today, and I said, April and I clicked right away, but we were lucky because, they talk about making adult friends and you have to have however many positive interactions, like 50, right? You have to have like 50 positive interactions with somebody to become friends or to decide that you want to be friends with them. It's much easier when you're, say, in college and you see people every few days, or you're in elementary school and you see them every day. When you're an adult, unless you work with them, you don't see them every day. And so if you're in, a weekly aerobics class, or you're in a monthly book club or a monthly bunco group, it takes a long time to get to know people. And so, we became parking lot friends, and at pick up and drop off as we were walking kids into the school, there were many, many mornings where there were screaming children, for all of our children, all 5 of them. one time or another. and, and, it was just, again, really nice to have another mom to be gracious and say, it's not you, it's the
Yes.
kids.
Yes.
Can
And I
I,
think it really helped the bonding process accelerate.
yes, when you have something that near and dear to your heart as your kids and somebody who just instantly gets it. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
my kid does that too. Oh, no, it's not just you. We fight over breakfast every morning.
Or, oh, it was socks this morning. How about you? Oh, it was shoes.
Right.
Oh, we were fine with shoes, but the socks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then our two oldest were in the same grade, and then our youngest, so I have 3 children, so my youngest and then your second child, they were in I don't know if they were in preschool together at that point, but the next year they were. And I think we had that double and then you joined the book club.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I invited you or if someone else in our community did, but
no, you did, and it was because we went to a different birthday party. We went to another kid's birthday party at Bounce U. I don't remember who it was, but we were there, and I was like, "Hey, I know you." And being a working mom, in a lot of ways, it was hard for me to sort of break into the mom community because I was always having to dash off. Oh, well, no, I can't go have coffee at noon on Wednesdays, or no, I don't need a babysitting trade group because all my kids are in daycare, because it was just a different situation from a lot of the parents, not just moms, but a lot of the parents that were in that first grade class that were there with our oldest. And so, a lot of times I would go to these.
Too.
Yeah, I would go to these parties and be like, okay, I don't know anybody. And you can make small talk, but then I was like, oh no, I remember April. I had pulled up, I think, my Facebook profile, and my profile picture was a knitted heart.
Oh,
do you remember? And you were like,
you showed us dragons.
Yeah, you said, "Oh my gosh, do you knit?" And I was like, "Oh, well, that's nothing. It's like this big. It's tiny. It took me, half an hour. Look at this. This took me a month." So yeah, I do knit. I like to make, I guess the official term in the community is softies. So like stuffed animals. I made a caterpillar as a baby gift. I made a bumblebee as a baby gift. I have made little stuffed horses, like for my nieces. And the dragons are not really cuddly. They've got a lot of pipe cleaners in them, but they're very impressive. And so when
you're amazing
for a new friend, you're like, oh, look what I can do. Here's my dragons.
Here's my talented. Yeah. So my mom is learning how to knit. It's actually kind of not anything that she ever wanted to do before, but as she's been recovering from the after effects of the chemotherapy that she went through when I was pregnant with my daughter, and after 5 years ago, I guess, she had neuropathy so bad that she couldn't feel anything, and she still can't. She can only feel the chunkier yarn. She can't feel the fine yarn. And she chose to learn how to knit, and now she's getting pretty creative. Like, she's learning how to do new patterns and like kind of have a waffle weave and just different things that look really cool. You can see she's really like improving, her techniques and things like that. And so she came home with us one time from Minnesota to Arizona. It was when I think my brother got married. I think she rode in the car home. My husband had to fly home, and I still had to drive, 3 kids across the country. And we flew her home when she got here. But she taught my daughter how to knit in the back seat. And so it's been really nice knowing that I have a few friends here that do know how to knit, because when my daughter has questions, I literally don't know how to help her.
Right.
So
it's tricky. I learned to knit from a book. And so when things go wrong, you just have to sort of brute force it. And I was too stubborn to look on YouTube. Like, when people say, if you could go back and do one thing, talk to your younger self. Like, my younger self was too stupid to take any advice from me. But I would go back to when I was learning to knit and be like, Jen, check YouTube. It's full of people doing exactly that. You can watch them. Because it would have made things much easier.
My daughter and my mom got together on Zoom the other day, and they just knitted together. And I look forward to maybe us doing this you and a few other friends who knit maybe kind of have an online knitting club for those of us who are home all the time.
That would be fun.
So I do know something about your home office, and I know that is also your yarn room.
It is also my yarn room. The yarn is in the closet, and I have a cat, and I look this way because he's sitting in the chair right next to me. I have a cat who likes to eat yarn, like he likes to chew on it and actually ingest it, and it's not good. Oops. And so, yeah, I have had to keep the closet door closed. But my home office is also my craft room, and it's the repository for all things that have no other home in our house. Which
is it just like Jen's room? Like if it belongs to Jen, it just goes in there.
Yeah, and because of the coronavirus and the delays in shipping that we've been having, I started doing my Christmas shopping early this year. And so as I've seen things that I'm like, oh, that's perfect for anybody, my sister or a niece or whatever. Yeah, I'm just buying things and kind of stashing them in the corner.
Good idea.
So, yeah, one of these days I'll be ready for Christmas. Hopefully it's before Christmas. So my office is much more cluttered than I would like it to be. I would like it to be more peaceful, but
it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. And this is, you had asked me at one point for any kind of tips and tricks for people who do work at home. And one of the things I always tell people is it's really nice to have a separate space. And of course, it's do as I say, not as I do. Because my space is just a collage of all kinds of different things that I'm working on.
I know you've got your guitar in there, and you've got like a comfy chair, and then your yarn closet, and then your work desk. But when you look at your work desk, you only see your work desk. And when you sit in your comfy chair, you don't see your work desk, right?
I can see it if I look for it. But when I sit in my comfy chair, I can see the TV. So I have a little TV in here so that if my boyfriend is watching football on the big TV, I can be watching the World Series here on my little TV. We don't have to fight over the remote. Or if there's something going on, and I can just kind of listen to it in the background as I'm doing less demanding tasks at work. And I try really hard not to commingle my work and my personal, but it's just so hard. It really is. It would be nice to have that line, and I haven't figured out a way to make it happen. It's another work in progress.
Room.
Yeah, I need a bigger house, and this one's already pretty big.
So let's talk about your work a little bit.
Okay.
Like I said, I just interviewed a whole bunch of people who are entrepreneurs, and I know that you are a CPA.
I am a CPA. I got my license in North Carolina in 2012. My tip and trick for people who want to get CPA licensed: don't do it while you're pregnant with your first child. Don't do it when you have a newborn. Unless you have a really, really amazing partner who will jump in and take care of that stuff. So I got 3/4 of the way through my testing requirements before my son was born, my older child, and then he came along, and I still had that last quarter to do. And maybe the hardest thing that I've ever done, including giving birth to that little sucker after 28 hours of labor with him, studying for the CPA exam with a newborn was very, very tough. But I'm proud to say I got through it. I was licensed in February of 2012. I have been working for the same employer since 2009. It seems almost unbelievable that was 11 years ago, but I have been with the same company for 11 years. I've kind of worked my way up.
So you didn't have your CPA when you started?
I did not. And in fact, I had thought, I don't really need it. I'm not planning on practicing as a tax preparer or an auditor. And it's kind of a nice to have, but I have a master's degree in accountancy. So it's just gravy. So my boyfriend just came home. He rode his bike to work today, and so I didn't hear the garage door, but he does not work from home. So that's kind of nice and kind of not sometimes.
But your boyfriend did work from home for some time, right?
He did when the virus was pretty rampant. His company closed their doors and got everybody working from home. And then unfortunately he was laid off from that company and luckily was able through his contacts to get a job pretty much right away. And but his new company wants him in the office. So he mostly works in the office now, but he does take his company is owned by an Australian company, and since they're 15 hours ahead, he winds up taking their early morning meetings that happen at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. here.
Oh, yeah.
At home, and so he has a setup in his home office as well.
So you guys have like his and her offices. Can you actually see each other when the doors are open or not?
My back is to my door, so not really. If I'm standing in my doorway, I can see into his office, but we don't usually chit chat when we're both working. So it's we both try to stay focused on work.
So tell us what you do now.
Okay, so right now I work as the accounting manager for my company. We have about 2,000 employees in the United States, and I do all of their financial statement reporting and their indirect taxes. That would be everything besides income tax. So sales tax, property tax, those are the two biggies. Somehow or another, I've become a sales tax expert at my company, which was not something I ever planned for, but I try to keep learning, and it was something that needed to be done. And so I just, sort of the same way I learned how to knit, I just started doing it. And now people say, well, you're our tax expert. And I'm like, who? Like, oh, yeah. Right. Me.
So you didn't start off as a manager. How did you climb that ladder? And you weren't working from home at the beginning either, right?
No, I was working in North Carolina. They had hired a string of people who hadn't really worked out, and they were looking for a temp. And I had just relocated across the country and was looking for anything that would give me more hours than H&R Block was giving me at that time. So it was a temp to hire job. I took it. I worked for them for 6 months as a temp, as a senior level accountant, which I had been doing prior with my master's degree. I had the experience to do that. And then they promoted me to a team supervisor after a few years. And then when my boss, who was the accounting manager, left, they gave me that position. So I've been doing that since my daughter was born in 2014.
And that was all North Carolina?
All in North Carolina. When they promoted me to accounting manager, it was part of a relocation to California. That's where our home office is. And then after I was there a couple of years, I came home to Arizona for personal reasons. My boss and our CFO were gracious enough to let me work from home. Well, we had a site here in Arizona, and they were gracious enough to let me work remotely, but not from home. And so I worked.
So you had an office here?
I had an office here in Chandler, where, I would drop the kids off at school, and then I would drive into the office every day. And none of the people that I work with on a daily basis were in that office, but they liked to have me on site. Then they sold that building. And my boss said, well, is it possible? Could you work out of your home? Do you have an extra office or something? And I said, yeah, I can make that work. So for a while, I worked in my living room. I just had a front room and then a family room. I had 2 rooms in my house, and I turned that front room into an office with no doors. So I set up my desk and a chair and a printer, and I worked just kind of out in the open. And then
with two little kids running around.
With two tiny kids running around. Yeah, that you look back on a lot of parenthood and think, I don't know how I did that. And the answer is you just do. There's no other alternative, so you just do it. And then, I moved into a new house that was bigger, had a fourth bedroom, and was able to actually set up an office. The living situation has kind of evolved, and the job situation has kind of evolved, and the only thing that's constant is change, right? That's
right. So you were working remotely, but the rest of your team was all working on site in California.
That's right. So I have 4 direct reports.
Do you feel like having had this experience before they all had to come home has really helped you lead them?
I think it has. There have been a number of things right when this pandemic first started, and they were starting to work from home, and I was able to say, no, just get a headset, because I fought through not having a headset for maybe a year, and I had a desk phone, but I was doing a lot of this. And as things have gone more and more, I've said, no, this is silly. You need monitors at home. You need a headset at home. I've been able to tell them stuff about logging in through a virtual private network, a VPN connection, issues that I have had or the ways that I've gotten around them. And so, it's not something that you wish on people to have, that like, okay, we're going to have a global pandemic. I really, really hope we have this global. No. Obviously not. But it was sort of lucky that I had already done this, and that I was already familiar with running team meetings from 400 miles away. Okay, we're going to have this, we're going to have a conference call. And so back to evolution, I've started saying, okay, so, like the last Friday of every month, we'll do something fun. We'll do Hawaiian shirt day, and plan to be on camera. We'll have pajama day. We'll have
just once a week.
Just once a month.
Once a month.
And so I meet with my one thing that I did have to do when they all moved to their homes with the pandemic, and they're still there. My company hasn't reopened yet.
Okay.
My company is open, but not for administrative office staff.
Got it.
Is I used to have a once a week kind of touch base meeting to say, okay, what's going on? What issues are you having? And when everybody was in the office together, they were able to work out a lot of their things. They all sit in kind of an open bullpen style cubicle area. And so they're able to look at each other's screens and kind of talk to each other as they need to. Well, now that we're all in our own homes, I moved that meeting to 3 times a week.
Oh, wow.
Just to say, okay, what kind of issues are we having? And a lot of times you find out it's, I can't get logged in to the network. Oh, I already had that problem because I came into my office at 7 a.m. and now it's 10, we're having this meeting. Here's what I did. Here's who I talked to. Let me forward you an email, and we can solve everybody's problems at once. And I try to keep them to just half an hour. I don't want to really hammer everybody with, this is what you should be working on, when I want them to be working on it instead.
Yes.
I try to keep it real quick. We just kind of go around the circle and say, all right, what are we working on? Anybody have any issues? Anybody have anything they want to bring up? A lot of times I make announcements, that my boss is going to be out of the office. So if you need any checks signed, you need to get them in, or I'm looking for a piece of mail. Has anybody seen it? And a lot of times we just sort of commiserate about, there's COVID cases at the school, or my son is, I have 2 employees that have college-age kids, and trying to navigate, okay, how do you handle being a college freshman and not know if you're going to be on campus or remote? And do you commit to moving into the dorm and being socially isolated in the dorm, or do you stay at home with your family and socially isolate with them? And so they're able to kind of commiserate and talk about those things,
Yeah.
even though the rest of us don't necessarily have the same problems. We at least, it's made us a little bit more of a family.
So when I first started working from home in 2008, I had some people that I very much loved on site. There are a few people that I probably wasn't going to keep in touch with ever again.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm social, but I can use things like the chat features, that they have, the instant messaging on the computer, to communicate. I'm pretty social in that way too. I didn't realize how much I was going to miss that chit chat. Like it took me about a month before I put my finger on what felt weird. And I realized I can't just turn around and tell, it was Denise. I can't just tell Denise what happened to me, or this little thing like you just would think about and you would just want to tell someone and blurt it out. And there just wasn't someone to say that to you anymore. And so I wonder have they told you how they received these meetings, like the increase of meetings, or is it good?
They haven't said anything to me. I've asked them about if the opportunity came about for them to go back into the office as a choice, would they want to go? And they've basically all told me that they prefer being home. Mm-hmm. I think accountants in general tend to be a little less social, let's say that. Yeah. They tend to be a little quieter. I'm the exception that proves the rule. And I think they enjoy being home. When we do quarter end closings, we typically work very late hours. Mm-hmm. And so when we're there in the office, I make sure to order in food for them. Well, they told me this last quarter, it was so nice to just be able to, go have dinner with their family. And so, okay, my husband or my wife is home and we sat down and we had dinner and we watched the news or we watched our sitcom. Mm-hmm. And then I came back to work. Yeah. Came back to, from the kitchen to the office. Mm-hmm. And so then working so late doesn't feel like such a hardship because you're not missing your family. Right. But I had the same experience. I really missed having lunch with coworkers. I really missed, going just to have a break, a cup of coffee or something. Yeah, I can see my little coworker friend. He's sitting on my desk now.
Is that your cat?
Yes, that's my cat, Juno. He's a good boy. When he's not eating my yarn, he's a very good boy. So yeah, he keeps me company. He sits in the cozy chair and he snores, so that I don't feel alone in my home office. And
a warm body.
And he eats lunch with me, so I can tell him my things like, can you believe this? Can you believe what they're asking me today? And he just purrs. So he's a very understanding soul.
So during the pandemic, our school sent all the kids home for remote learning. Yep. And so we did that the second half of March, April, and May, and then back again in July and August. And then they gave the option to come on site as some of the students came on site in September. Do you want to tell everyone what your solution to that issue was? Like, how did it go for you last spring?
Oh my goodness. So so basically our kids never went back to school after spring break. So, I had planned, I had activities for them over spring break, which then were canceled. Yep. Because
you had them all booked for all these camps and all these things.
Yeah, I did.
Really prepared.
I was ready for them to have so much fun, and then everything was closed and canceled. So it was really hard, very stressful for me to just have the kids home. And when they're just sort of home, like on weekends, they're usually fine. They will play with their toys or color or read or watch television. But after 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and then I'm thinking, I'm a terrible person. I need to get they need to be learning. They can't just rot their brains on TV for however long this epidemic lasts. but then to try to balance, oh my goodness, getting online for a morning meeting, getting them going. My 8-year-old at the time was having none of it. I had to fight for every minute of school with him, and almost every single day wound up with one of us in tears.
Yes. Let me just say, our children are very intense children, all of them, all 5 of them. So I understand, because really I know your children very
kids.
Well.
They're really fantastic.
Right before the pandemic, our families were spending a lot of time together. I had started picking up your kids and bringing them back to your house sometimes, and vice versa. And we did the Super Bowl party together, and we were hanging out at like food trucks and everything.
That's right.
And it was really nice because we were kind of sharing, like, our school is a charter school, so we don't have busing services, so we have to go pick them up. And it was kind of fun for my kids to like let their friends come in the van, and we drove them up. It's about 20 minutes or so, and they're all like brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And then just everything stopped.
Everything
and so
stopped.
It's like they had so much community, and we're taking this, I like to say that we're doing the extreme edition of social distancing. And I know your family was too. So
we were too. And my daughter she was in kindergarten last spring, and she didn't want to. And she would just close the laptop on her teacher, just like hang up on her.
We've seen that here too.
Very difficult. And I really had to sort of lower my standards and lower my expectations. I made sure very early on to communicate with my boss that, like, hey, I don't have any childcare. The kids cannot go anywhere else. There is no one else to do school with them. So I will get my 40 hours in, but it will not always be in a very orderly or methodical fashion.
Yeah.
And luckily, I feel like, having been with the company for so long, he trusts that, okay, I had started working on site. I'm a good producer. I have high work ethic. Then when I went remote, the production didn't go down. When I went and started working at home, my production didn't go down. In fact, it probably went up because nobody was walking into my office to chit chat. And so, he can trust that, yes, I will get my work done. It's just, I'm a mom too. And he was a single dad of older children, but he remembers what it was like when his boys were 9 and 7. So that was all very lucky. And then once the summer came and went, I thought there's no way we can do that again.
Not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. I was burning the candle at both ends, and I don't feel like I was doing I don't think I'm not a teacher, and I feel like it was damaging my relationship with my son to try to be his teacher and fight that fight and die on that hill of battle. I wanted to save my battles for other things.
Yeah.
And so, so starting in the fall, I found, I guess the trendy thing that they are called now is micro schools or pods. So I basically partnered with another mom who was planning on staying home and schooling her own kids, and
through the school, like through the online program, remotely through the school.
Yes. So she had basically cut her hours at her job and committed that she was going to be the proctor, is sort of what I say.
Which is a full-time job. I have learned with 3 kids, it's a big deal.
It is. And so, it's not that she's not teaching, she's not preparing the curriculum, but she's implementing the curriculum, right?
And supplementing too.
And she, so our plan was that she would basically be the stay-at-home parent, but for my kids too. And so that we had a lot of stuff going for us. We knew that they had maintained the same level of social distancing that we had for the most part. Our children are in the same classes, not only the same
is a miracle.
grades. So she has 2 children, I have 2 children. Our older 2 are in the same class, and our younger 2 are in the same class.
That's great.
So it wasn't that she needed to maintain 4 separate stations. She needed to maintain 2. And she had offered, she is an angel straight from heaven. She had offered, and I had kind of been like, oh, that's so nice of you. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I should just beg her. I should just beg her to do this. So we went for a coffee and ironed out the details. I made sure my ex-husband, the kid's dad, was on board. We worked out a payment plan. We worked out what the schedule would be, what the expectations were. Just like you would at a school, right? Where they send out a list of things and say, the front gate's open at this time and you need to pick your kids up by this time, just so we had clear expectations about when drop-off was going to happen, what the custody schedule was, all of these sort of logistics things, which you don't even think about until you start explaining them to somebody. Allergies, dietary restrictions, anything like that. And then even the first couple of weeks, we're working on that. And she says, I just need to check in. She says, I need to talk to you for a minute. I just need to check in with you. It seems like your daughter likes to say, I can't. And I was like, oh yeah. She wants to see what she can get away with. She'll tell you she can't. And then you'll catch her doing it. I said, our friend who's running this circus she says, I'm going to try to push her. I'm going to, and I just want to make sure that that's okay because I think she can do these things, but she's telling me she can't. I'm like, oh, no, she can. She's trying to get you to do them for her. And she goes, yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking. I just wanted to check in. So we have a lot of check-ins. We have a lot of, she texts me almost every day. She sends pictures of what they're working on when she can.
She sends me the pictures too.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'm just so grateful that she is really enhancing their educational experience and allowing them to kind of pursue things they are interested in and making it sneaky learning. She keeps telling me, don't tell them that. But she will say, okay, let's make cupcakes, and then there's all of this sneaky math of measuring, and she had them make a list, like a step. How do you make cupcakes? Step 1, and the 2 6-year-olds are sitting there and writing down step 1: gather the ingredients. Maybe they didn't write ingredients, but step 2: get a bowl and mix them. And they're writing this. And they're so excited because they're making a list and they're going to make haunted cupcakes for Halloween.
Awesome.
Yeah, and they're practicing their handwriting and they're using critical thinking of first I do this and then I do this and introducing the words first, next, then, finally. So yes, I'm so grateful. It's been a really fantastic experience. Not only for me, for all 4 of our children. All 4 of them are happy to have that community, that socialization, that
they're like siblings now. Like they have that like sibling camaraderie and
and battle. Yes. Yes, I have personally witnessed our 2 older kids like nose to nose, just really upset, and then the next day all was forgiven. It was, they were very passionate. They were each convinced they were right, and then the next day they had talked it out, and they were back to, hey, don't you have your small group at this time? And hey, don't forget, they're working on a Google Doc together. I guess my 9-year-old has been emailing me links to view this Google Doc that he and his classmate have been working on about something about Pokemon evolutions and something, but he's very proud. He's figured out how to email this past week. And so
that's awesome.
bad.
We called that house one time with all the kids there while you were working one day because my 5-year-old needed to conduct a poll and ask some people some questions, and I'm like, how can I quickly
Right?
find
Gather
like
all the
four
people.
four kids? Yeah, we just zoomed with them, and so even though we haven't been able to be in the same like pod, we
Hmm.
kind of are like the cousins who are like a little bit on the fringes, but
It's
close
been
by.
really good. It's it's really hard to, I mean, you have to be committed to continuing your communities. You have to be committed to, okay, we're going to Zoom, we're going to FaceTime, we're going to, one of the things that this friend has introduced my children to is ding dong ditch, where you run up to somebody's house
You
and
did that to me.
put a bag on their porch. And when I was a kid,
Yeah.
it was a bag full of something not very nice,
Oh,
like dog doo doo. But our friend is
I
much
think you gave me
nicer than that.
chocolate.
Yeah, so she does like little goodie bags for Halloween, and
Mm-hmm.
then she sent all of our kids to go ring the doorbell and then run, to be socially distant. And so she said I
Right.
could hear them screaming all the way down the street. She says I know our neighbors knew as soon as it happened because they started screaming as they ran all the way down the street. So
Not discreet at all. So, talking
no.
about mental health during the pandemic, I think that you and I have had once a month socially distanced coffee date
Hmm.
since May. And I think that's been basically the best thing that's happened to me. We didn't start doing, well, we did it in May and then I think maybe like July.
Yes.
I know we did it.
Yeah.
And they got progressively longer. Like it was 4 hours and then 5 hours. It was 107 degrees Fahrenheit, and we were sitting outside, thankfully, like under a pavilion with some shade, but we were just like drenched
Oh yeah,
sweat.
very sweaty, but it's
But
worth
it's
it
so
for your
worth it.
friends.
Yeah.
And drinking hot
To
coffee, right? I was drinking hot coffee.
so smart. That's good. So
No, it is to find those ways to be able to see people and talk to people and find a human connection. And there's a lot of technology. I'm quite grateful for the technology that's out there to do these FaceTimes and Zooms. And
you were the one that introduced us to Marco Polo.
I love Marco Polo.
You and I had Marco Polo. We haven't done it recently, but I think we had a lot of like 40-minute conversations back and forth for
Yeah.
several weeks before we did our once a month coffee date.
Yeah. I Marco Polo with several friends regularly. One in particular, my best friend, works nights. So she works from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. In Utah. And so it's even a different time zone most of the year, all summer. And so when she gets off work at 6 a.m., I don't really do 6 a.m. unless it's Christmas morning. And so,
yeah.
But when she goes into work, however early she gets to work, if she's 5 minutes early, I get a 5-minute polo. If she's 10 minutes early, I get a 10-minute polo. She just sits in her car and chats because she doesn't want to call me at 11 o'clock at night. And she doesn't want to call me at 6 o'clock in the morning.
And you've got your phone like on mute or something like that.
Yeah, on a do not disturb. And so then when, I see it in the morning, and a lot of times as I'm brushing my teeth and making breakfast or coffee, I'll send her a quick polo back to just say, oh, that's great about your husband's promotion, or whatever. If she said, hey, I'm sending a package, let me know when you get it, or anything like that. It's been really good. We've been able to stay more in touch than just email or phone calls or even texts. So that's been good.
Did you have that going even before the pandemic?
Marco Polo, yeah.
With her?
With her, yes, because of our schedules. But now I have a friend who lives in Tucson, so a little bit south of here, and then I have another friend who's on the other side of the country that I Marco Polo with at least a couple of times a week, to just say hi and hope you're well. And my friend across the country is a big baseball fan. I'm a big baseball fan, and so we've had a lot to talk about with the World Series and the shortened season. And then my friend that's down in Tucson just got married, outside on a mountaintop and, with the bare minimum of people. But So then I'm really happy and to get to talk to him and try to find a time when we can go visit and I can meet his new wife. Yeah, not yet.
So Marco Polo is kind of like leaving voice messages for each other, but they're video.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's another program that's similar as Voxer, but that's just the voice, and this is voice and video.
Right. So
I'm using the free version. I don't know about you.
I am as well. The paid version is something like $5 a month, I think. Mm-hmm. There's some advanced emojis, and you can play back at double speed instead of single speed.
Which I did like doing, because like sometimes if I could see that you were recording live, I could like do the double time and catch up so that I was watching you like in real time. So I felt like I was actually right there. But
right.
I'm not willing to pay $5 for that.
I'm not
yet.
My friend on the other side of the country does pay for it, and so I get some fun emojis,
The fancier.
Yeah, I get fancier emojis instead of just, I think you get a heart, a smiley face, and a thumbs up.
Yeah, it doesn't give you like a sad or a mad face when you got the free version. And so like if you're telling me a sad story, I'm like, wait, all of these are like positive affirmation.
Yeah. Yeah, I send a lot of hearts like, oh, I'm so sorry. I love you. Like,
I'm here for you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so happy for you. I love you. I'm so sad. Oh, that sucks. Heart. Yeah. So, yeah,
Jen,
I really like it.
Go ahead.
For the asynchronous bit where, like leaving a voicemail that I can leave a little video for my friend who is sleeping, or she can leave a little video for me that I'll see when I wake up and I can still see her face and we can still almost have a conversation if I keep it short enough. Mm-hmm. But
when you told me that I wasn't waking you up, that made me feel more free to actually, because I was getting off of my, teaching gig at like 6 a.m. and I'm like, I don't want to like ping her and like ding and, make all the alarms go off on your phone. But yeah, it's really nice for the asynchronous. Sometimes that's for busy moms. Like even if I can see that you're talking to me, I'm like, that's so nice that she's talking to me. I have zero ability to catch up with her right now, but I will look forward to catching that later.
Yes, exactly. That's the other thing with mom friends is, okay, well, if my kids go to bed at a certain time, but your kids go to bed at a different time, or I have a really hard time unless we have a coffee date set or something like that of just like, hey, I just wanted to call and catch up. Like, you can't do it. There's too many variables. My 2 kids and your 3 kids and your husband and my boyfriend and my work and your work and so technology's it's a good thing.
It can really help. Even though we're not quite neighbors, but we're in the same vicinity, I think we've seen each other more through things like Marco Polo than we had. We had done some coffee dates and things like that. Like I think you sometimes on your Monday mornings would sneak out for a little bit and we'd do a quick coffee, but I miss those times. I'm looking forward to that coming back again.
Yeah,
so Jen,
someday.
To wrap up, do you have anything that you want to share that has been helpful? I know we didn't talk about your desk. Do you want to just say a couple words about your desk? I know you were so excited when you bought it.
Yeah, so I bought a hydraulic standing desk. So it has a little switch and it will go up and down so that I can stand or I can sit. And full honesty, I have mostly been sitting lately. When I first bought it, before the pandemic, before all the craziness of trying to teach my kids and work at the same time, I was standing probably 2 hours every morning and 2 hours every evening. Wow. It is made out of bamboo, so it's sustainable, which I love. And it's got a monitor. I'm not sure what you call it, arms. So there's it attaches, it screws onto the bottom of the desk, and I have 2 monitor arms. So I can move my monitors up and down or side to side or rotate them as I need to, if I need to push them out of the way, or if, I want to move them to different positions. It's really easy to do, and it clears up more real estate on the desk because I don't have a monitor sitting on the desk. It's mounted on an arm.
Ooh,
It's
wow.
very nice. I really, really love having the monitors up and movable. So it's kind of like, if you've ever been at the dentist and they've got that lamp above your head, but they can move it like it articulates almost any direction. They can really
Mm-hmm.
like get it in your face and blind you. So yeah, that's kind of how my monitors are set up. And
What is the name of
I
the company that makes this desk?
I want to say it's the manufacturer is Jarvis, Jarvis. It's a Jarvis bamboo desk, but I bought it from the company name is, I want to say it's Fully, FULLY.com.
Okay. We can look it up and make sure to put the proper names and maybe even links into the show notes.
Yeah, it's and they have amazing customer service. This isn't a paid promotion or anything. I was just really happy with them. I also bought a filing cabinet from them, and you can get one with like a little cushion on the top of it, so you can use it as a seating. If you had I say a real office. I do have a real office, but if you had if you were in an office setting and you needed, a seat for when people come in to chit chat with you, you can get a pad for it. So it doubles as kind of a bench. I didn't buy the pad. I just needed the filing cabinet, but it was damaged in the shipment. And I sent them an email and sent them some pictures. The bottom drawer is a little, instead of being straight up and down, it's just tilted a little bit.
Wonky.
Has not changed any of the functionality. They said, you can send it back, we'll send you a new one, or we'll give you a $75 credit. Like, we'll refund the $75.
Oh, wow.
So really fantastic customer service. They really want you to be satisfied, and really good quality. The desk is amazing. I do love it. You can hear the cat is rustling around. I apologize.
Is that the cat?
Yeah, he's climbing on some tissue paper. And
is your cat still a kitty?
So he's 18 months.
Yeah.
He's not that old. He's just over a year old. And so he's still very curious, and he has a lot of energy, and he
bites you in your face in the night.
Doesn't bite my face, but he bites my feet.
Oh, right. Feet.
Yeah, he chews on my toes. And lately he started herding us into bed. So if he decides it's time for bed, but I am like walking around in our living room, he'll like start batting, claws in, but he'll be batting at my calves to try to get me to go back to bed.
Wow.
He can cuddle up.
A little turkey.
Yeah, he's I was kind of laughing. I was like, everybody in this house is bossy, even the cat.
So for our friends who are maybe at home, unexpectedly working from home during this time, or maybe just trying to look for work from home positions, do you have any things that you'd like to share just to encourage them, or extra tips that you haven't mentioned already?
So I mean, like anything, I think there's a lot of upside to being at home, and there's some downside. One upside that I love is that if I have a little downtime between meetings, I can go run and put a load of laundry in. Mm-hmm. And then the washing machine does its thing while I'm still working. I love that kind of thing. I love that I don't have to go out to get food, and I don't eat as much garbage food. I know other people have had the opposite experience, where because
you can go both ways.
The kitchen is open 24/7, they snack 24/7. I haven't I'm bad about getting up in the morning and making a lunch. And so to be able to go in there and make a turkey sandwich and eat it is much better for my health than running down to the Burger King and getting a quarter pounder.
Right.
I think I mixed those up, but
I think you got it right.
At any rate, I think the hardest part about working from home is keeping the motivation to be working. That if I walk into the kitchen and I see, there's dishes in the sink, they just have to wait. and giving myself that permission of like, that can wait. You're at work right now. You're on the work clock.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be much better about it. I've slacked off during pandemic, but I used to be really good about, I would get up and get dressed as if I were going to drive into the office every day.
Why?
So as a reminder to myself that I was on my employer's clock and not
Right.
my clock. So, when I'm wearing my work clothes, I don't do dishes.
Okay.
And when my kids were younger, it was also a good signal for them that they knew that if I was wearing work clothes, that they needed to wait. They needed to be patient. But if I was wearing pajamas or yoga pants, that they could come and talk to me.
It was like mom time.
Yeah,
So
that I
I
was.
did like the opposite when I started working from home. I think I got rid of 90% of my work clothes and I only kept like my one favorite skirt that was extra stretchy. And so it got me through 3 pregnancies. I could wear it
Yeah,
pregnant or not pregnant.
it,
And I just wore the same skirt if I
and
had to go on site.
like with the kitchen, I think working from home is very personal, and I guess my advice is that if it's not working, keep trying things until you find something that works. If it's just too tempting to, I don't know what, that you walk by and your knitting bag is right there, you close the closet door. Or one thing that worked really well when my kids were home over the summer was they wanted to play with me, because they kind of got tired of the TV and the Nintendos and things, and so they'd be like, "Mom, when can we play the game of life, or when can we read this audiobook together on your phone?" And so I would set a meeting on my work calendar for them,
Ooh.
so they knew that they would have my undivided attention for an hour, like my lunch break,
And it
basically.
was blocked on your calendar.
It was blocked on my calendar, and I would tell them, and my daughter would come in and say, "Are you still working?" And I would say, "Yes, yeah, but but I have a meeting with you at noon. So if and it's 11:20, so you just need to be patient for 40 more minutes." And having that time
Mm-hmm.
blocked off, that they knew that they were going to get my time, made them a lot less likely to interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
They still would occasionally, like, I can't get this package of goldfish crackers open, can you help, kind of things,
Right.
but not wanting attention.
Not
Um,
needing the full shebang right now.
yeah, and then being committed to kind of clocking out from work at, say, 5 o'clock, and then if I needed to go back after they went to bed, I could still do that. But I tried
Mm-hmm.
really hard so that they knew that at 5 o'clock they could come in and we would have family time,
Right.
um, because I want them to know that they are important, even though work is here in the same house as them, like another sibling. They have to share.
So
Why do you have to work?
we don't have time to get into it all right now, but Jen actually has tons and tons and tons of great parenting ideas. And I think to the point where I don't know if it was your idea or someone encouraged you to start thinking about maybe writing a book.
Yeah, so a friend of mine who was a counselor, like a marriage and a child trauma counselor, had told me one time, we were talking about my kids, and she said, if everybody parented like you did, I wouldn't have any clients. And I said, that's a really nice compliment. Thank you. And especially
Mm-hmm.
because parenting is so hard and so demanding, and you feel like you're doing it wrong so much of the time. And she says, "No, I'm serious. I was talking to my partner in my practice, and we think you need to write a book so that all of these parents that are ruining their children would figure out how to do it right." And and it was kind of like a ha 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 over a glass of wine. However, it really appealed to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to write, and I like to share my stories and my insights. especially when I think that they're helpful for other people. I would
And they
never
are.
tell anybody you're parenting wrong, because again, it's
Mhm.
very individual to both the parent and the child. But to be able to say, what works for me is if I put a meeting on my calendar, then my kids are not so antsy
Mhm.
because I'm validating that they're important, but work is still important. Or I ask them what would help,
Do you
kind of
have a
stuff.
working title for this book?
So the working title for the book is The Owner's Manual for Kids. Because when I brought my first child home from the hospital, I thought, like, I don't think I'm qualified for this. And my
Yeah.
mom told me, yeah, they don't come with an owner's manual. They really should. And it's always kind of stuck with me that, yes,
That's awesome.
children really need an owner's manual. So that's the working title. As I think of little things, I'm writing them down, and someday I'll publish a book about
I
parenting.
love it. Well, we'll put some of your links into the show notes, but I
Great.
think we're going to call it. I think we went way past the time that we talked about.
We did.
But Jen, I love you. Thank you for coming on today,
Of course.
and appreciate it. It's just good to see you. And we also got to record something out of it. So it's kind of fun.
Excellent. Yes, excellent.
All right. Well, this has been April Malone with Yes, I Work From Home, and I'm with Jen Hewish today, and I will see you next time. Thank you.
Yeah.